The year is 1511. The English court is a furnace of celebration, a spectacle of gold and music and hope. King Henry VIII, not yet the bloated tyrant of our nightmares, but a golden prince, a true Renaissance man, has a son. He is beautiful, healthy, and for a glorious 74 days, he is the future. They call him Henry, Duke of Cornwall. His birth is met with roaring cannons, wine flowing in the streets, and a father's overwhelming joy. But the joy is a fragile thing. A late winter sickness steals into the royal nursery, and the future of England dies in his cot. The silence that follows is the sound of a dynasty's deepest fear. This loss, compounded by a series of miscarriages and stillbirths, will curdle a king's love into obsession. It will drive him to break a queen's heart, to defy a pope, to shatter 1,000 years of faith, and to send some of the greatest minds in his kingdom to the executioner's block. The entire modern history of the English-speaking world is built upon the foundation of that empty cradle. But history is a story of pivot points, of moments where the river of time could have easily flowed down a different channel. So let us return to that royal nursery in the cold winter of 1511. Let us imagine the court physicians, their faces grim, preparing the king for the worst. But in our timeline, the fever never comes. The child's breathing eases. He wakes, he cries, and he lives. That single, healthy cry is the sound of our world being erased. It is the sound of a different destiny being born. For in saving this one child, we have not just secured a dynasty. We have unknowingly condemned a future queen, preserved a faith, and altered the fate of continents yet to be discovered. For the next 2 decades, the court of King Henry VIII is a place not of anxiety, but of supreme confidence. He has what every king craves, an heir. A strong, healthy boy, Prince Henry, who is paraded before fawning ambassadors. The king's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, once shadowed by reproductive failure, is now hailed as a triumph of faith and royal love. Henry, a deeply pious man in his youth, sees his son as a direct reward from God for his devotion. He is the defender of the faith, not just in name, but in his heart. Catherine of Aragon in this world is not the spurned, tragic figure of our history. She is the respected mother of the future king, her position unassailable. Her quiet dignity and deep piety become the moral center of the court. The Spanish alliance, which she embodies, is not a political inconvenience, but the bedrock of English foreign policy. She is and will remain Henry's cherished wife and his most trusted advisor. And in this court, a young woman with eyes as black as night watches from the sidelines. Her name is Anne Boleyn. In our world, her wit, her ambition, and her refusal to be a king's mistress would ignite a revolution. She was the spark that lit the flame of the English Reformation. But in this world, the king has no need for a new wife. He is not scouring the court for a fertile replacement. Anne is clever, she is charming, but she is not a necessity. The king's gaze does not linger upon her. His obsession is not for her, but for his growing son. Anne's ambition remains, but its target is far lower. She plays the games of courtly love, perhaps she breaks a few hearts, and eventually she accepts a respectable marriage to a nobleman, a Henry Percy or a James Butler. She becomes a duchess, a footnote in a history she was destined to rewrite. She lives a full life, has children of her own, and dies in a warm bed, never knowing that in another reality, she was a queen whose ghost would haunt a nation for centuries. She is a potentiality that never came to pass. With Anne Boleyn married off and forgotten, the great engine of change in Tudor England simply stalls. The king's great matter, his desperate quest for a divorce, never happens. There is no need for it. And without the great matter, the men who define the age are completely transformed. Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, the butcher's son who rose to become the most powerful man in England, does not fail his king. He is not stripped of his titles and forced into a humiliating exile, dying on his way to face charges of treason. Instead, he continues to masterfully guide the ship of state, his immense wealth and power unchecked. He likely funnels English gold and influence towards his ultimate ambition, securing the papacy for himself. Imagine it, Pope Thomas, the first and only English pope since the 12th century. And what of the two great Thomases who stood on opposite sides of the divide? Sir Thomas More, the brilliant lawyer and humanist, a man of unshakable conscience, is never asked to betray it. He is never asked to sign an oath acknowledging the king as the head of the church, an act he saw as a damnation of his soul. He remains the king's friend and Lord Chancellor, a celebrated intellectual light of Catholic Europe. He does not hear the sickening slide of the executioner's axe. He dies an old man, surrounded by his loving family, his head remaining firmly upon his shoulders. And what of his nemesis, Thomas Cromwell, the blacksmith's son, the ruthless political genius who single-handedly orchestrated the break with Rome and the dissolution of the monasteries? What becomes of him? He is a man of immense talent, and talent always finds a way to rise. Perhaps he becomes a successful administrator under Cardinal Wolsey, a master of finance, a useful tool of the state. But he is never unleashed. He never gets the opportunity to tear down the old world, to build a new one in his king's image. His revolutionary Protestant ideas remain whispers, not policy. And like More, he likely dies a peaceful death, his name known only to bureaucratic historians, not as one of the most transformative and terrifying figures in English history. The men are saved, but the revolution is stillborn. The break with Rome never occurs. England remains a devoutly Catholic nation. This isn't just a matter of how people pray on a Sunday. It changes the very fabric of the country, its landscape, its wealth, and its soul. The dissolution of the monasteries, Cromwell's masterstroke of state-sponsored vandalism and asset stripping, never happens. The great abbeys of Fountains, Glastonbury, and Rievaulx are not left as picturesque ruins for tourists. They remain the centers of learning, charity, and economic activity. For centuries, the monasteries had been the medieval equivalent of the welfare state. They provided alms for the poor, care for the sick, and lodging for travelers. With their survival, England's social development follows a completely different path. The crisis of poverty that plagued the late Tudor period is lessened, and the massive transfer of land and wealth that created a new class of upwardly mobile gentry, the very class that would later challenge the monarchy and lead to civil war, is averted. The power of the old aristocracy tied to the old faith remains entrenched. England is more stable, but it is also more feudal, more conservative. As the years pass, the Golden Prince, Henry VIII, ages. Without the immense stress and paranoia of his marital chaos, without the festering leg wound from the 1536 jousting accident that many believe turned him into a monster, he ages more gracefully. He grows stout, yes, but he remains a more magnanimous and confident figure, his legacy secure. He presides over a magnificent Catholic European-style court, a patron of the arts and a bastion of tradition. And then, in the fullness of time, he dies. The crown passes seamlessly to his son. King Henry IX ascends the throne. What kind of a king would this man be? He is not his father. He was not the spare who grew up in the shadow of an older brother. He was groomed for power from birth, raised by the deeply pious Catherine of Aragon and a father who saw him as a gift from God. Henry IX is likely a sober, dutiful, and deeply Catholic monarch. His worldview is not insular and English. It is continental, shaped by the powerful bond with his Spanish cousins. His reign would see England not as a rival to Spain, but as its staunchest ally. The Protestant Reformation is tearing through Germany and France, and King Henry IX sees it not as an opportunity, but as a heresy to be crushed. English ships and English gold are used to support the Habsburg emperors in their religious wars. The enemy is not Catholic Spain, but the Protestant heretics of the north.
And it is here, in the reign of this forgotten king, that the most profound consequence of our story finally reveals itself. It's the consequence of a person who is never born. Henry VIII's second marriage, the one that never happened, gave him a daughter he declared a bastard, a girl he ignored and terrorized, but who possessed his intellect and her mother's fierce spirit. A princess named Elizabeth. In our timeline, her existence is a direct consequence of Catherine's failure to produce a male heir. In this new timeline, where Catherine succeeded, Elizabeth is a ghost, an impossibility. She is never conceived. And with that, the entire golden age of England vanishes. There is no Queen Elizabeth I. There is no Virgin Queen, no Gloriana, no figurehead for a burgeoning sense of English national identity. The cultural explosion of the Elizabethan era, a world of Shakespeare, Marlowe, and Spenser, is profoundly altered. It would still be a time of genius, perhaps, but its character would be different, more somber, more religious, more in line with the Spanish Golden Age than the English Renaissance we know. The great geopolitical conflict of the 16th century, the Cold War between Protestant England and Catholic Spain, never happens. England and Spain are on the same side. This means the Spanish Armada of 1588, that legendary moment of English defiance, never set sail. There is no great naval battle, no Protestant wind that saves the nation. Sir Francis Drake and the English Sea Dogs are not celebrated national heroes. They are pirates, and their Spanish allies would demand their execution. Without this defining rivalry, England's focus remains on Europe, not on the vast open oceans. The impetus for creating a powerful navy to challenge Spain is gone. The drive to establish colonies in the New World, to plant a flag on shores that Spain claimed as its own, is political suicide. The British Empire, whose foundations were laid by Elizabethan adventurers seeking to plunder Spanish treasure, is stillborn. There is no Jamestown, no Plymouth Rock. The history of North America, and by extension the United States, is unrecognizable. The continent remains the undisputed domain of the Spanish, the French, and the native peoples they encountered. The world we have created is not a world of ruin. It is a world of stability, of tradition, of unbroken faith. England is a powerful, respected Catholic kingdom, a junior partner in a Spanish-led Europe. Its king, Henry IX, and his descendants rule peacefully. But it is a smaller world, more inward-looking, less dynamic, less free. The seeds of parliamentary democracy, of individual liberty, of revolutionary thought, which were sown in the fertile ground of the English Reformation, never find soil in which to grow. Our entire reality, the language you are hearing, the ideas that shape our cultures, the very existence of nations like the United States, Australia, and Canada were all, in some small way, born from a king's desperate desire for a son. By giving him that son, by granting him his heart's desire, we extinguish the future we know. We are left with the ghost of a timeline, A world built on the foundation of a quiet nursery, a healthy baby boy, and a queen named Anne Boleyn who lived and died and changed nothing at all.
This was just one path not taken. Thousands of others are waiting to be explored. If you enjoyed this journey into an alternate past, like this video to support our channel and subscribe to Pivot Point History. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another moment where our world gets rewritten.